What's up, guys? My name's Noah. I make music as Haterade, and this is the Productive Producer. In today's video, we are going to go over a fundamental task in making music, especially EDM, hip-hop, and trap music, making 808s. So you might be thinking, I already know how to make 808s. You may not know how to make 808s, and in that case, you're going to learn a lot today. But if you already do know how to make 808s, stick around still. It's always good to brush up on the fundamentals and see if there's something you may have been missing or forgetting. Maybe it's a good reminder or refresher. So the first thing we're going to do is load in an instance of Serum. So I chose Serum because that applies to all different types of DAWs. Some of the processing in Serum is going to be, it's going to apply to any other type of synthesizer. So we're not going to be going into really complex stuff today with this guy, just some really simple, basic, fundamental things about building your 808 and making it bang. So the first thing we're going to pick is the wave shape. We'll click here and we'll go to analog basic shapes here. And these are the textbook wave shapes in pretty much most synthesis. We're going to stick with the sine wave for now, but you can use a sawtooth wave too, depending on how you like to filter it. So that is, we're gonna pick the wave shape first. The sine wave is this guy right here. It's really, it's really curved here, and I'm gonna pull that random all the way down. And what this will do is keep our bass constant, so it doesn't jump around. Because when the random is up, it will start every time we play a new note, it'll start from a different point in the wave, and that can sometimes create some weird phasing issues, and we don't want that. So we're just gonna pull that down all the way, and so it's gonna start in the same spot every single time. Before we get into the tips to make your 808s better, if you're watching this video on a phone, it might be best to plug in some headphones. Even if they have a little bit of bass response, the super low tones that we're gonna be working with today are going to be hard to hear on a cell phone or laptop speakers. So if you have headphones, plug them in. If you're in your studio, play it through your monitors. If you got a sub pack, make sure that's plugged in and working so you can follow along with this video. So your ideal sub range is down here from D sharp to G roughly. That's where you're gonna get the most rich tones with that sub value without it sounding too muddy and gross and too tonal and pitchy as we go up. You can see as we go up, it starts to sound a little bit not as bassy, so we want to keep it down here. We're gonna keep it down. We're gonna keep it at E. I like making subs at E, but anywhere in that range is fine. Tip number 1: shaping the envelope correctly. So the amp envelope is right down here. We can make the sub come in slowly. The attack just refers to how long it takes for us to get from 0 amplitude, which is like no sound, to max amplitude, which is full or as loud as we want to make it. So if we bump it up, actually maybe we'll use the sawtooth wave here. So it's a little easier to hear. So you can kind of hear how it goes like that, And then the release right over here is how long it takes to get from max amplitude back to 0 amplitude. So we can set this guy to, we'll shorten the note here. And you can kind of see it kind of gives it like a little bit of a ringing motion to it. So we have the one note, then it kind of trails off. So that's one way you can build an 808. You can make it all release and just have one little note right there. So we'll go back to sine wave and move into tip number 2. Tip number 2 is filtering. So filtering is what we'll use when we want to remove specific frequencies from a sound. It's a little bit different than an EQs because we're completely eliminating those frequencies. With an EQ, we can be a little bit more surgical. We can duck specific frequencies and pull them down just a little bit. With filtering, we're cutting them all out. We're going to engage a low-pass filter here. I'm going to roll this down to about here and give it some drive and some fat. What this is just going to do is just going to send more signal from the filter into that low end. like that. I'm going to switch this back to a sine wave because we're going to get a little bit crazy here in tip number 3. Okay, so this is where we can get really creative with how we want our sub to sound. We can add in distortion here, and what distortion is going to do is it's going to add harmonic frequencies to our sine wave. And this is why we want to choose a sine wave, because we can control how gritty we want to make it using the distortion. So why don't we we'll go in and we'll grab a asymmetrical distortion. I like using this one for my subs because it makes them sound really just really gnarly. You can see, like, also bonus tip here, make sure to engage mono down there at the bottom. You want to make sure that we got mono on, especially if we're using release. So when we play a note, it doesn't cross over, like, because we're using a lot of release, so we don't want those sub notes to step on each other. The mono will make sure that when only one note can play at a time. So if we play another note while the first note prior is still ringing out, it'll stop playing that previous one and start playing the next one. All right, so you might be thinking, all right, we're done, right? Well, I'm not really completely satisfied with this. I think we could still use some more filtering. So I'm going to engage a low pass here, another one, post distortion. And the reason why we're doing it post distortion is because when we apply the distortion, it starts to add harmonic frequencies. And what I mean by harmonic frequencies is we're looking up the spectrum. It's adding those frequencies in the upper registry. You can hear, like, when we take it away, it's just those subtones. But when we add in the distortion, you can hear those higher frequencies start to emerge. So you might be thinking, okay, no, we added the distortion to add high frequencies. Why are we cutting them away right after we add them? Well, we don't want those ones at the super high end registry, right? We want some of those more high harmonic frequencies in the low registry, those low frequencies, because that gives us a little bit of character. So I'm going to add in that low pass filter and give it a little bit more drive again. I like that. And that sounds pretty good to me. So another thing you could do too, this is another bonus tip. Man, you guys are getting a lot of bonus tips today. Grab an LFO right here. You could also do this with an envelope. I just like using the LFO. Switch it to envelope and make it really fast, like maybe 1/64th. And then come up here, drop that on the coarse pitch up there at the top, and then hold Option, Shift, and then click. Switch that polarity to bipolar to unipolar, or I think that's what it's called, unipolar. And I'm just going to bring that pitch up here so it pitches down really, really fast. Just it goes doof, like that, and that creates sort of a kick effect. And we're going to add this also to this filter right here. We want to make sure that we're on envelope so we get so it only hits once. We don't want it to be continuously cycling through. We're also going to do it here on this envelope, or this cutoff too, on this filter. Maybe we'll slow that down a little bit. There we go. So you can see it kind of adds that phantom kick built into our 808. Another thing we could do here is you might have noticed that there are some subs out there that are just super gritty, super thick, and it's noisy. Well, we can add some noise to our sub and make it even more crazy. So why don't we try doing that? We're going to take away this filter here, and I'm going to add a air can noise. And I'm going to extend this note here. Ooh, so you can see we're already getting some really cool tones out of that. I'm gonna pull the volume down a little bit. Maybe cycle through. Let's try a couple of other air cans here. We want to make sure that we don't have our direct out set to be on, because if it's on, then it totally bypasses the effect. And we don't want that. We want that high frequency content mixing with the low frequency content and getting pushed through the distortion, and that's what's giving us that texture. So after that, what I'll typically do is I'll come over to my audio effects, and I'm going to drop in an EQ8. And what I'll do is I'll roll off those super, super high highs, because we don't need those. I'm going to cut the mid-range frequencies out of this sound, which will emphasize that texture on the top and the low end without making a bunch of extra noise in the middle, so we can add in other sounds like lead sounds, drum sounds, that sort of thing, so we can make some space in the mix later. Then we could shape all kinds of stuff here. And we can shape it however we like. All right, last bonus tip right here. Check this out. So I'm going to create another point. We also call this a node, if you want to get super nerdy. And I'm going to find some of these harmonics here, and I'm going to try to shape the sub by either boosting or reducing some of these harmonic tones in the low end. You can hear that one has a lot of effect right there. That might be a good move to do right there, to make some room for our kick drum, or maybe we have like a really thick snare that occupies that 100 hertz range, and we can make some room for that snare or kick by cutting this frequency out. Those are some of my tips for making good 808s. If you liked this video, please like the video. Also, please subscribe too. It really helps us out. And if you want any sort of samples, project files, the Serum presets, some studio time with me, where I can help you out with your tracks and getting your tracks to the next level, just go down to our Patreon down there below, and we'll see you in the next video. Peace.